Supreme Court has already, in essence, spoken out against the president. Earlier today, they indicated that they will not hear the president's appeal in the E. Jean Carroll sexual abuse case. Remind us what that case was about and what the Supreme Court's decision to not dive into it means.
Right. So there were two lawsuits that were filed by the president against E. Jean Carroll. And this one had to do, by E. Jean Carroll against the president. And this one had to do with defamation and sexual assault, a federal court in New York. And a jury there found him liable civilly for both. And it was a $5 million verdict. The other case is still pending and going forward, which is the one that is the larger monetary remedy. And so the question before the Supreme Court, or what they were trying to get, but the president was trying to get the Supreme Court to weigh in on, were a bunch of issues. But the two main ones were that the court allowed women who were not, who were alleging sexual assault, their testimony, even though they were not the subject of this particular lawsuit. So that's an evidentiary question. And then there was another question about, if you remember, the Access Hollywood tape and the admissibility of that tape that had the president's sort of bragging about his ability to control women in certain ways and grab them, and that, you know, he was claiming was irrelevant and prejudicial. And so these were issues that were, you know, contentious, but the Supreme Court has decided that it's not worth it for it to weigh in these cases. And once again, the Supreme Court gets to choose which cases it hears based on, you know, what it thinks is it's important to weigh in on. So that means this verdict stands, and the president will have to pay this amount of money to E. Jean Carroll.
So in your mind, does this decision effectively settle this question nationwide, or are there still, I guess, statutory arguments that states or even the president or political parties could raise in future litigation?
Yeah, absolutely. It will still continue to be litigated, because the Supreme Court hasn't said, by not agreeing to hear the case, they haven't said there are no issues or we agree with the way that this court came out. All it's saying is that we don't want to hear this case. We just are not prioritizing it. We're a court of limited jurisdiction, and we're only hearing you know, a handful of cases compared to how many you know, people file writs asking for us to weigh in. And so there is no precedential value to it determining that it will not hear this case, and future cases can come out differently. But the one thing that we know is that this case is over.